All right, Genesis 7. Genesis 7, let's call this one skunk. And this week, one phrase stood out to me because I think I saw it come up at least 3 times in the first 7 chapters. And that phrase is every living thing. Chapter 7, it comes up in the context of God blotting out every living thing from the face of the earth. And in chapter 1, it comes up in the context of God giving man dominion over every living thing. And in neither circumstance does it seem like God is literally saying every, or literally meaning every living thing. Why? Because in chapter 7, he told Noah to build an ark to save the living things that were going to be spared in the flood. And so it seems like he's talking about every living thing outside of the ark. Likewise, in chapter 1, presumably only Adam, or maybe Adam and Eve, are around at the time. He's saying that man will have dominion over every living thing. And so it doesn't seem like he's extending man's authority to having dominion over other men, even though every living thing could possibly mean that if that's the way you want to interpret it. But going through those terms in these first 7 chapters reminded me of this. The Bible can be a very dangerous book to the degree that it allows us to see what we want to see. And if our desire to interpret the Bible becomes untethered from understanding what God actually intended, then we can find ourselves causing both ourselves and the people around us frustration. Why? I can try to go exercise dominion over a skunk, but if I haven't thought through the way that I try to do that, that situation might not turn out very well for either me or the skunk. And so in understanding God's wisdom and authority, it's probably important to consider 2 things. One, is this a situation or a person or a group of people over whom God has actually given me authority? 2, if I do have God-given authority in this situation, am I wielding it in the way he's designated me to wield authority? And that's one of the reasons why studying the word can be very helpful, because you see examples of people in all kinds of situations wielding authority either irresponsibly or responsibly, and seeing how that plays out. And so that's why the deeper biblical wisdom can be a guide for us in very practical ways. Why? Because when I was overseas, I got to see in very distinct ways the way that each and every one of us probably have authority in ways we don't realize, because their age is a huge thing. And so even when there aren't adults around, younger kids tend to listen to older kids as though they are the authority figure in the room. And even though we may not have that same corollary in this culture, ultimately what happens is we have authority in ways we don't always appreciate it. And so it's important at an early age for us to understand how to wield appropriately, how to wield authority appropriately. And I've heard it like this: good leaders also learn how to follow. So even if you don't see yourself in a position where you find yourself in a position of authority, understand that part of preparing yourself to be a good leader is learning how to follow. And likewise, no matter how high we rise in leadership, we're living under someone's authority, whether we realize it or not. And so my encouragement for you is my encouragement for me. Hopefully we can avoid the frustration that comes in, once again, 1, extending our authority to places where God simply hasn't designated for us to have it, and 2, in places where we have God-given authority, understanding the peace that can be restored when we wield that authority responsibly. God's best to you as you go forward in him, though.